choose a little lamb, and he would put that lamb on his shoulder, and he himself would begin the journey. Well, obviously, as you might suspect, the mother of the little lamb would follow. And once the mother began to follow, one or two other sheep would follow, and once you got two or three others, you'd get all the rest, and pretty soon the whole flock would be going through the valley and doing their best, struggling up to the other side. See, that's what God does to us, doesn't he? There are some of you who are listening to this who know what it's like when God chooses a little lamb, the death of a child that is born stillborn, or perhaps dies after a certain number of weeks or years or months, and your heart is just absolutely broken. And for the first time in your life, you begin to long for heaven, and you begin to say, I want to follow my child all the way to glory. I want to follow that one who has followed the Good Shepherd. And the Good Shepherd takes us to the other side. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod, the rod, of course, which is a defensive weapon. The rod is about 4 feet long. It's like a club, keeps the enemies away. The staff, the shepherd's crook, to take that sheep that's on its way off the path, or that has fallen, or that has experienced even a broken leg, and the shepherd needs to bring him back. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Yes, the shepherd's crook sometimes hurts, but it's good because it gets me back. David, who wrote this psalm, you remember, experienced the bitterness of sin, adultery, and murder, and he knows what it's like for the restoring shepherd to come and to say, David, you're off the path. I have to pull you back into fellowship with myself so that I can continue to lead you in paths of righteousness. So you'll notice that he comforts the sheep. He defends the sheep in verse 5. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Imagine. The sheep is now on the other side of the valley. That's where the green grass is. That's where the table is prepared. And the shepherd has prepared it. He's gone on ahead. He's checked out the grass. He's checked on the water to make sure that it isn't polluted. It's the best meal that the sheep can possibly ever have. And where does it happen? Right there in the presence of its enemies. If you can feel content in the presence of your enemies, you have won the battle with fear. If you can feel content exactly where God has planted you, with people who are against you, people who are lying about you, people who would like to destroy you, people who would like to see you fail, and right there you are content. That is the provision of God. And how does it work? You stay very, very close to the shepherd. The reason that the sheep can graze in the presence of enemies is because the sheep knows that the shepherd is close by, and the shepherd is watching the sheep as he or she eats. The shepherd is there. Jesus said on one occasion, I send you forth as lambs in the midst of wolves. Sheep are very defenseless. They have no way to protect themselves. A dog can kill 100 sheep in a night, and there's nothing that the sheep can do if the dog is wild and out of control. There's just nothing that they can do. And Jesus said, you're like sheep, but I'll stay with you there in the presence of your enemies, right where it hurts the most, right where the most damage against you is possible. I'm there with you. Well, my friend, today that's difficult for us sometimes to believe, isn't it, that the shepherd is with us, even in the presence of our enemies. And of course, what we need to do is to believe that there is nothing that will ever separate us from the love of Christ. You remember in the 8th chapter of Romans, Paul lists various possibilities, and he talks about famine and nakedness. That has to do with people who have no clothes, poverty, sickness, the sword, if we should have to die for the faith, nothing will separate us from the love of God, and nothing will ever happen to a sheep but that the shepherd knows about it, and that the shepherd is involved in the life of that sheep. Today I want to invite you to let God build that refuge, build the refuge right in the presence of your enemies. You know, the Bible says that the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run into it, and they are safe. So imagine for just a moment that a sheep runs into a shelter, into a strong tower, and he is there in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the hail, and in the midst of enemies that want to destroy him. Draw near to God today, my friend, and the Bible assures us that he will draw near to us.
Thank you, Dr. Lutzer. Today, Dr. Erwin Lutzer brought part 2 of When the Shepherd Takes Our Hand, the second of 4 studies in the Psalms, in a series on When God Shows Himself. Tomorrow, more about the Lord as our shelter in times of danger. Running to Win comes to you from Chicago's Moody Church to help you understand God's roadmap for your race of life. Our 4-part series on When God Shows Himself can be yours on CD, cassette, or MP3. For full information, call toll-free at 1-800-215-5001. That's 1-800-215-5001. Ask about When God Shows Himself when you call. Visit our website at runningtowin.org, and don't forget, Running to Win is supported by listeners like you. This is Dave McAllister. Join us tomorrow for our next Running to Win.